Up on Canada's Finest House through a friend of a friend, Nick Fiorucci, who approached me and asked me if I wanted to do some music for this project. So I naturally inclined to do that because it's Canada. I like Canada, and I like house, and I like fine house. So it seemed a pretty logical thing to do. Fifths came from a fifth note, which is just a note, root key, up 5 semitones plus, and it's just this little. Fifths I actually did before before I was asked to do it, and I was going to release it myself, but it's just kind of one that I had on the side that I didn't know where to put it or how to do a B-side for it, kind of thing. So when the time came to release a track for Canada's Finest House, I kind of flipped back to that one and unloaded it. So it's kind of cheesy like that. But fifth note is a root key with another key on top. That's about 5 semitones up. So it's a fifth. So it's like I don't know. Yes. My definition of fine house is house that doesn't suck, not preset house. I think a lot of producers fall victim to the sample library loop where they're going through these just well-known sample libraries that everybody uses, and then they implement them into their tracks, and I can hear it. No, I'm not a big fan of that.
Girl, you know I love it when you work, when you're out on the floor, work, when you move that body like it's crazy.
We just literally put out a email blast to our database that we've reached out to different artists and producers nationwide from Halifax to Vancouver, and invited them to submit and put a deadline. It was extended a few times because we needed everybody needed more time, but it finally made it out, and I'm pleased with the submissions, and hopefully we can do another one.
How we selected the tracks for the CD was that there were several producers all across Canada that sent in well over 35 tracks for both me and Nick to peruse through. It was a bit of a painstaking process because there was a lot of really good gems on there, but after some time and a bit of fighting and a bit of arguing, we were able to narrow it down to 14. In regards to the order of the CD, what I did was I had the tracks in my own studio, and I spent some time just putting it together to get a good flow and a good logical sense put together. Brought it over to High Bias Studios and recorded it there.
I've had the pleasure to know Nick Fiorucci for many years. When I wasn't known in the industry, I was a fan of the label.
High Bias Records is a record label that was run by two people, Nick Fiorucci and Michael Ova. Unfortunately, about 10 years into their working relationship, Michael Ova passed away. But to continue on with what High Bias was doing for the Canadian and international music scene, Nick kept the label going and going strong.
He put out some of the most legendary records ever in house, period. Whether it was Get Into the Music, and there's this other one that I used to harass him about, One Hell of a Time. I think it was Groove Sector. Dun, 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 dun. And even like Drum Attack, and even his stuff was he was really ahead of his time, and he put out some incredible 12 inches, and he's still here. So what does that tell you? You got to take your hat off to him. To weather the storm for this many years, I've seen people come, blow up, and disappear, and he's still here, and he's still pushing Canadian beats.
Nick is a very smart businessman. I mean, he's weathered a lot of changes in the industry, and he's worked with a lot of people, continues to put out stuff constantly, which is what you really need to do as a label, and he's competing on the world market.
Back in 03, 04, Nick and I had kind of known about each other through the scene, through the grapevine, and finally we met at one of my shows. And we hooked up in the studio and started working on a couple tracks. Actually, in fact, back then, we actually ended up winning the '04 Urban Music Award. Since then, Nick's been introducing me to quite a few talented artists on High Bias, and it's been great working alongside him and some other great remixers on some tracks.
It's a funny story because that song was originally an acoustic pop rock track with Carlo Coppola, who's really a pop rock artist. I love his voice, I love his style. We met a few years ago. We've done a couple of other songs together, and I took that song and remixed it and then handed it over to Marty, who put his flavor onto it. And so it's kind of like a three-way track for sure. It's great.
So why were you so lucky to have 2 tracks in Canada's Finest House?
You had to ask me. Miss Raquel, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. You got. Hold on a sec. This is a true advocate of the house music scene in Canada for real here. She's actually publicist of Canada's Finest House, host of Electronica. She runs Scenester magazine, and she's a promoter in the nightclubs. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the one that supports the scene, and we need more people like Miss Raquel for sure. And I thank you for sure. I'd love to think that that I'm been part of the scene. I'm certainly supported, and that's why I put out the CD, and hope to keep going. If we could stay on this roll right now, I tell you, we're kicking butt. It's really fantastic. I mean, a lot of the artists are charting, they're touring. They have a unique sound that's actually making noise and actually changing the electronica scene. Canada's definitely on top of the world right now.
What Canada's Finest House is, it came from an idea that me and Nick Fiorucci at High Bias Records had. We've been discussing at length the amount of times people seem to have this impression that the only really good top quality music comes from overseas or from anywhere but North America. So we figured, why don't we take the opportunity to take some of Canada's best producers and put them all on one compilation CD. The track that I have on the CD is called Explosive. I did it with one of my studio partners, Gavin Bradley, and we also roped in a vocalist named Camille Douglas. Now, she was recommended by a fellow singer named Simone Denny, a Canadian and international singing and singer-writer icon. And what me and Gavin were doing, we were putting together kind of a funky kind of tech house electro track. But then all of a sudden, when Camille came in and sang the vocals that we gave her, it had exploded into a whole nother realm.
We had this like electro-y track that was kind of taking off, and it was really energetic, and we really felt that we needed like a powerhouse female vocal on it. So we were looking around, we found Camille, and the track was born.
How our track Explosive came together was that me and Gavin Bradley were sitting together at his studio, the Gavo studio, and we set out to write just a simple, funky little tech house track. No bells and whistles, just a good, simple track that was going to be effective on the dance floor. And as we were writing it, we started getting these different influences from what was going on in the club scene, as well as 2 partners of ours, Steve Foster and Wade Allen, that gave us some input as well. And the track just kept on growing and growing.
I think that I mix a lot of organic things with electronic things in a certain way. So I'll do, a track that's almost jazzy, and then it'll get like trippy in the middle. So I kind of have this thing going on where there's both the chill out and the tweaked techie things happening at the same time. That's my sound.
Between the tracks that we had so far, we really felt that Explosive was pretty strong and really held its own amongst everything else as well. And I felt really proud of this one and really wanted to see it represented.
Well, we thought about it while we were making the track, we actually started the track first, and then we thought of a name after we got into the groove. And just the sounds that we were using, it's like this sketchy track that just gets stuck in your head, so Sketch became the name.
It's for the late night crowd. It's very dark and dirty. Actually with a good friend of mine, Jayforce, was on the CD. I actually started making beats with Jayforce about 1.5 years ago, and this was our first track that actually just came out recently. And then I started working more closely together with my partner, Danny. And Danny ended up doing a remix, which made it to the CD, and it's doing well.
We signed a deal with Sketch, and Nick thought it would be a good idea to put it on the mix compilation.
The possibility of Canada's Finest House 2. That hasn't been brought up yet, but however, keep an eye on my website, Deko-ze.com, for details.
Talk to me in a few months from now when the record's been out for a while. I'd definitely love to follow it up. The scene is definitely growing. Canada's on fire right now. There's a lot of great things happening, more so than I've ever seen in many years.
I think there should be another one because this country just keeps on putting out incredible songs. There's producers that aren't featured on that CD that are starting to bubble now, and I hope that they get the opportunity. People in cities like Winnipeg and Regina, even Vancouver, Victoria. It's incredible. There's producers out in Halifax. It's mind-blowing. The talent that exists in this country is incredible.
There are so many other Canadian artists that really deserve some props as well. You take DJs and artists and producers like Max Brown, Plastic Man, John Aquaviva, Dave Armstrong. There are still so many other Canadian artists that people need to know are here from Canada.
Why should someone go up? Number one, you got to support Canadians. Number one. Number two, I mean, there's a lot of huge people on that CD. You got Hateris, you got Deadmau5, you know, Flipside, Preach, Deko-ze. I mean, it's just, sorry if I forgot some names on the CD, but it's a great package put together.
Regarding some of the artists that are on the CD, so many of them are doing so well. For example, Deadmau5, he was announced the most influential artist of 2007 on Beatport. You take someone like Hateris. He's been banging it out ever since his track Space Invaders came out over 10 years ago, and he's been forging a strong path not only as a producer but with his record label as well. You take someone like Kashmir Ray, who's not only delving a strong path in the gay scene but breaking out on record labels like Star 69 and his own Delicious label as well. Gavin Bradley, in his own right, fantastic singer, songwriter, forging a strong path too. DJ Addy, fantastic tribal producer, DJ, promoter, doing his thing as well. And I'm really happy to have so many good artists like this on the same CD.
Like Canada has been doing quite well, and I'd like to think that was a group effort between myself and many others who have been contributing a lot lately. Hateris, I think, was the big thing to come out of Canada when electro started kind of blowing up a bit, and he had his Space Invader hit, and that kind of gave Canada a good honorable mention in the global contenders of the people who were all like into electro house. We're selling on all the major download sites. We've already charted 7 singles out of 14, so half the songs have charted top 100 on the top downloads, dance download sites in the world. So we're extremely pleased, and I mean, obviously we want the support in our own backyard in Canada, as well as worldwide. So I think the world is taking notice right now to the Canadian scene for sure. A lot of people, when I go out to other countries, are just saying, "Wow, what are they putting in the water in Canada?" It's just like.